Why and how can we decolonize the African mind? In most of my videos, I focus on ancient African history, ancient African social, economic, and political systems, ancient African kingdoms, scientific inventions, architecture, and many more. To demonstrate how advanced and well organized Africa was, I attempt to trace the history of ancient African civilization. Of course, I'm not fully aware of all the crucial details that would help revive Africans and show them how civilized our forefathers were. That being said, the fact that nothing is new is gradually becoming noticeable. Many of the modern wonders, innovations, and fields of study that we take for granted today have their origins in Africa. Africa is the birthplace of the earliest examples of astronomy and mathematics. One possible example of the first man-made structure is the South African stone circles called Adam's calendar. Bones and tally sticks prove that humans were performing arithmetic as early as 44,000 years ago. The ancient world's greatest storehouse of knowledge was the Library of Alexandria in Egypt. Alexandria was the origin of many of the major Greek discoveries in astronomy, science, medicine, maths, and other fields. Why am I paying more attention to these subjects? In my view, Steve Biko's concept of black consciousness holds the key to resolving many African problems, including the ethnic conflicts in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In this global village, we Africans must keep reminding ourselves of who we are. Africans, you must know yourselves since you are on your own. In response to Bongani Mahlango's question, Steve Biko said, instead of assuming that someone will guide him to freedom, a black man should be more self-reliant and rely on himself. He went on to say, the black man is now a shell, a shadow of himself, utterly conquered, drowning in his suffering, a slave, an ox that timidly and sheepishly bears the burden of oppression. Let me get into the message of today. Decolonizing the African mind. What does it mean to decolonize the mind? How does the mind get decolonized? Decolonizing the mind points to the African intellectual movement, which was made widely known by Kenyan author Ngugi wa Thiong'o. The movement places a strong emphasis on actively opposing and destroying the cultural and mental legacies of colonialism. It does so by reclaiming African languages and viewpoints and rejecting the idea that Western or European knowledge is fundamentally better than African knowledge. In essence, it is about critically re-examining and reconstructing colonially imposed narratives in order to free the African mind from the colonial perspective. To liberate Africans from colonialism's cultural and psychological effects, this procedure entails, first, restoring indigenous knowledge. African languages, customs, and worldviews that were suppressed or undervalued during colonization should be valued and restored. Second, rebuilding identity. Encouraging pride and togetherness in African identity, free from colonial influences. Third, challenging Eurocentric narratives. questioning and destroying colonial era notions that depict Africa as inferior or reliant on the West. Fourth, encouraging African initiative. Promoting political, economic, and cultural independence while opposing neo-colonial influences. Promoting native African languages over colonial ones is a key component of this idea, since language is regarded to be a potent instrument for forming identity and thought. This movement calls for reassessment of academic disciplines and curricula to incorporate African historical narratives and viewpoints. Decolonizing the mind promotes the acceptance and appreciation of African intellectual traditions while opposing the notion that Western culture and knowledge systems are the only legitimate ones. The goal of decolonizing the mind is to aggressively confront colonial legacies to achieve true African empowerment and the right to choose. To promote a sense of cultural pride, this movement supports the revival of African customs, artistic expressions, and philosophical systems. In order to establish a future in which Africa prospers on its own terms, the rise of Africa and the decolonization of the African mentality together constitute a dual process of internal liberation and exterior development.